The ocean, vast and enigmatic, hides secrets that continue to baffle even the most seasoned marine biologists. From ancient structures that defy explanation to otherworldly creatures lurking in the depths, the underwater world is a treasure trove of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Prepare to be amazed as we dive into a collection of underwater discoveries that have left experts scratching their heads and questioning everything they thought they knew about the ocean.
David Fravor. David Fravor is a US Navy commander who spoke about some pretty terrifying things that he encountered underwater while working for the Navy. So according to him, twice while recovering spent practice munitions out of the water, he spotted a weird underwater object. The first time, he saw a dark mass underwater. He described it as being a big mass that was kind of circular. He said he was certain that it wasn't a submarine. For the second sighting, he was retrieving a practice torpedo when this same weird thing sucked it down into the depths of the ocean. The torpedo was never seen again. So what was this big mass that he was seeing? In our 9th spot, we have the naval report. After hearing David's interview, a 79-year-old woman contacted him. She said that her father was a naval officer, and when she was a child, her father showed her a telegram that stated that unidentified objects had been sighted going in and out of the water at one of their locations. The woman's father told her, and I quote, "We get these all the time, and it's always in the same area." But obviously, the Navy isn't going to release this information to the public. In our 8th spot today, we have the Sycamore Knoll. This is a weird underwater structure located close to Malibu. No one knows what it is, but it looks like a weird stadium-shaped structure, and it's located about 2,000 feet underwater. It's also massive. It's about 2.5 to 3 miles wide. It also has what appears to be pillars or columns supporting it up, and under there, it looks like an entrance. One theory is that it's an underwater alien base. Crazy, I know. But a number of UFO sightings have been reported for years in that area. Some even claim to see UFOs landing in the waters in that exact area, and this was before the underwater structure was even discovered. Freaky, isn't it? What do you think it is though? Let me know in the comments below. In our 7th spot today, we have the unidentified object. Now, in case you were unaware, there's this whole theory that aliens live in underwater bases, and that's why a number of UFO sightings are by lakes, or people have seen these saucers rise up or into the lakes. Well, in 1970, biologist Ivan Sanderson published a book titled The Invisible Residence. In this book, he talked all about UFOs or USOs, unidentified submerged objects, aka UFOs that have been spotted going into the water or rising up out of it. According to this book, on April 19th, 1957, a crew member on board a Japanese fishing boat witnessed something very strange. He saw two metallic silvery objects descend from the sky and dive right down into the sea. He described them as being 10 meters long with no wings or anything. When the craft hit the water, it caused great waves and rocked their boat tremendously. So maybe the whole UFO, USO theory is true, and they're living underwater. Who knows? In our 6th spot today, we have the gold. Did you know that $771 trillion worth of gold lies hidden in the ocean? Yes, you heard me. Wouldn't it be nice to just be swimming along and bump into some gold and become a millionaire? Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Ocean waters around the world contain about 20 million tons of gold in them. Each liter of water would contain approximately 13 billionths of a gram of gold. So you need to collect and filter an awful lot before becoming rich. And currently, there's no cost-effective method to remove the gold from seawater and be profitable. Now, people have tried. None have been successful. One case that I want to talk about has to do with a man named Ford Jerrigan. He came up with a plan for a gold accumulator. The plan was to extract gold from the Long Island Sound using a process involving mercury and electricity treatments. In fact, people thought that it was great, and before he knew it, he had investors, and he raised about $1 million for this project. But in the end, he scammed them all and fled with the money.
And we're starting things off with the Baltic Sea UFO. In 2011, the Swedish deep sea diving team Ocean X picked up a strange sonar image while searching for a shipwreck on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea. This is the image here. A lot of people think it looks a bit like the Millennium Falcon. totally agree. When the image got out, though, all kinds of tabloid newspapers started having a field day with it, saying the object looked like some form of technology, like a UFO, for example, or remnants of some kind of ancient civilization. The object has been described as approximately 60 meters in diameter, resting at a depth of around 85 to 90 meters. Now, while everyone was having fun imagining what kind of fantastical ancient underwater city could have existed or what alien species could have crash landed their ship, scientists looked at the image and were like, looks like it's most likely a natural formation, so that kind of sucks. But the UFO thing hasn't been totally ruled out, so that means it's a UFO, right? Next up we have eddies, which are basically the black holes of the ocean. Eddies are basically circular currents, sort of like a whirlpool that form within the larger ocean currents. Eddies can be small or big, and when I say big, I mean some of these things can actually be seen from space, which is terrifying. Now, there's not as much mystery surrounding eddies as there is with actual black holes in space. Pretty obvious where you end up if you're dragged into one of these massive sized whirlpools, but arguably scarier too, because with a black hole, at least you can hope you'd end up in some new fantastical part of space. With eddies, you just drown. And that's the other horrifying thing about these massive sized ones. Nothing can escape, just like a black hole. Anything caught up in it gets sucked in. And if you're thinking you can just wait it out, well, maybe you can, but some of these whirlpools can last for hours, days, or in some cases even years. So good luck. Number 8, the Cuban underwater city. The discovery of the Cuban underwater city was made by a Canadian company named Advanced Digital Communications, or ADC, in 2001, using advanced sonar technology. The company identified a series of geometrical structures lying about 650 meters deep off the coast of Cuba. These structures looked to be symmetrical and arranged in a grid-like pattern, almost like the layout of a city. The team returned to the site a second time with a remote underwater vehicle which was able to retrieve more sonar images which were interpreted to be various structures which didn't seem like natural formations. Some suggested this was the remnants of a lost civilization maybe, or an ancient city submerged by rising sea levels, but many marine archaeologists and geologists thought these seemingly man-made structures could also, once again, be natural formations, and given how long it would have taken for a possible ancient city to have sunk this deep, the timeline is just off. There were no known cultures able to build structures like pyramids that existed that long ago. There is still speculation till this day about this one though. And at number 7 we have the Portuguese manoa. So this thing may look like a jellyfish, but not quite. This species of Siphonophora can be found in the Atlantic and Indian Ocean, and as cool as they look, they're very dangerous. Those tentacles can grow to about like 30, even sometimes 100 feet, and they pack a punch. They contain venom-filled stinging structures which they use to paralyze their prey. Their sting is pretty excruciating, with some describing it feeling like being cauterized by a hot knife. Yikes. And although these things aren't typically lethal to humans, there have been some people who have died as a result. These things don't just cause pain, their sting has been known to cause fever, shock, and even mess with people's lung and heart activity. And even their detached tentacles have been known to still sting on occasion. Again, deaths for humans are rare, but smaller fish and crustaceans stand no chance against these things. But that's going to bring us to number 6 with the lion's mane jellyfish, aka giant jellyfish. The lion's mane jellyfish is a big, scary bugger found in the Atlantic Ocean. Its tentacles can stretch out over 100 feet. Yeah, a giant creature that can sting you with tentacles longer than a blue whale. And those tentacles, again, are very lethal. They're armed with stinging cells that can cause extreme pain to anyone unlucky enough to get too close. They've been known to sting swimmers and even cause breathing problems if the venom gets into the air. And the lion's mane jellyfish comes in different colors. Some of them are kind of orange, a little bit red. They got big bell-like bodies that can be over 8 feet wide. And these jellies mostly hang out in colder waters where they can drift along with the currents, giving folks a surprise if they swim to one.
Number 10. Immortal jellyfish. The immortal jellyfish is a species of small, biologically immortal jellyfish found worldwide in tropical waters. Given the nickname immortal jellyfish for its ability to revert back to a polyp stage while it's starving or in danger and basically escaping death, researchers believe this jellyfish may hold the cure to cancer. Under normal conditions, its life cycle is divided into 4 parts. The union of the male and female gametes produces a larva or planula. It then attaches to the seabed as a polyp, similar to an anemone. The polyps then release ephora, or a young jellyfish, into the phase prior to sexual maturity. They become jellyfish, reproduce sexually, and start over. But if they are stressed by an environmental threat, the jellyfish revert. After reproducing, they return to the previous phases, becoming polyps in the ocean floor again. As far as scientists know, jellyfish can repeat the process indefinitely. Thus, they are said to be biologically immortal. They can be eaten by a predator or fall into the hands of a swimmer, but they do not die of old age, which is pretty cool. Number 9. River at the bottom of the Black Sea. The Black Sea is one of the most isolated from the world's oceans, and there is a river flowing along the bottom of it. Now, it's just not a normal river. Oh no, it's complete with trees, leaves, and even waterfalls. One major difference is that the underwater river, when rounding a bend, moves in currents spinning the opposite direction from those on land. It has been an intriguing aspect of the ocean since it was found. According to scientists, if the river was on land, it would be the 6th largest river in the world in terms of the volume of water flowing through it. The discovery of the river, announced on August 1st, 2010, was made by scientists at the University of Leeds, and it is the first of its kind in the world. Number 8. The Mariana Trench. In the western Pacific Ocean, you will find the deepest part of the sea. The Mariana Trench is deeper than the height of Mount Everest, 43 miles wide, and a massive 1,580 miles long, which is 5 times longer than the Grand Canyon. A certified U.S. national monument, only small areas of the Mariana Trench have been explored. James Cameron reached the bottom in a submersible vessel Deep Sea Challenger in 2012, with the last successful attempt to search the ocean floor coming in 2020, when the Chinese submersible Fenduji made it all the way down. Several new species of underwater creatures have been discovered in the Mariana Trench, with most living on the surface of the ocean floor, including a type of sea cucumber. Explorers will find themselves in total darkness as they continue to understand what else lies in the deepest parts of the ocean and how marine life manages to survive. Number 7. Los Mahabalipuram Pagodas. The Lost Pagodas was long considered a myth by many because of the lack of scientific evidence of its existence. But in 2004, when the infamous Indian Ocean tsunami hit, for a brief moment when the waters parted, large rock-like structures emerged from the water and were witnessed by many onlookers. The Los Mahabalipuram Pagodas in India, making it an incredible discovery. The remains of an ancient city were found in 2001 off the coast of India. Scientists retrieved many different items from the large city, including artwork, hand tools, fossilized bones, and pottery shards. What makes the discovery incredible is that the city is thought to be around 9,000 years old, which predates to the earliest Indian civilizations that sprung up 4,000 years ago. There is still not a lot known about this ancient city, as scientists and archaeologists continue to search the area for more clues and debate how old the city really is and who once inhabited it. But wow. Number 6. The 2,400-year-old boat in the Black Sea. Archaeologists working with engineers from the Black Sea Maritime Archaeology Project, aka MAP, have discovered a 23-meter shipwreck that has laid undisturbed for more than 2,400 years. The find is believed to be the oldest intact shipwreck ever discovered. Thanks to the lack of oxygen in the Black Sea and the fact it was discovered a mile below the surface means it is exceptionally well preserved. The 75-foot vessel is thought to be ancient Greek. It still has its mast, rudders, and rowing benches. Speaking to The Guardian, Professor John Adams, the principal investigator with MAP, explained, "A ship surviving intact from the classical world, lying in over 2 kilometers of water, is something I would have never believed possible, and that it will change our understanding of shipbuilding and seafaring in the ancient world." The ship is thought to be a trading vessel. However, up to now, the design has only been seen on the size of ancient Greek pottery. The find is an archaeological first. The team have left the vessel untouched, apart from a small sample that was used to carbon date it by the University of Southampton.
And we're starting off the list with the Challenger Deep. Imagine taking a journey to the deepest point on Earth. It would be exciting for sure, but undeniably terrifying at the same time. The Challenger Deep is the deepest known point of the seabed of Earth. This extreme abyss lies at the southern end of the Mariana Trench in the western Pacific Ocean. James Cameron didn't just stick to directing blockbusters. He's a deep sea enthusiast as well. In 2012, he climbed into a specially designed submersible called the Deep Sea Challenger and descended about 36,000 feet, reaching the Challenger Deep, which is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. There's a handful of others who've dared to explore this mysterious abyss. Victor Vescovo, a Texan adventurer and businessman, went deeper in 2019. His submersible, the Limiting Factor, touched the ocean floor at a whopping 36,070 feet, breaking records. So right, it's deep, but what's down there? All sorts of weird and wonderful creatures, and some of them have never been seen anywhere else on Earth. Deep sea divers have also discovered microorganisms that thrive in the extreme conditions of the deep where sunlight can't penetrate. They survive in total darkness and under intense pressure. Organisms like this are pretty cool to discover too, because it makes us really question what the true limits of life are and the potential for extraterrestrial life in the universe that may thrive in environments we've never thought living matter could. Number 9. Humanoid creatures. So the year is 1982, and Russian military divers are conducting routine training exercises in the deep, dark waters of Lake Baikal, the world's deepest freshwater lake. These divers reported encountering something they couldn't wrap their heads around. Humanoid creatures. Survivors stated the beings were about 9 feet tall, with humanoid features and silvery scales or suits covering their bodies. Some even say they had large, unblinking eyes that emitted an eerie glow. Now, the official stance is predictably hush hush. The Soviet government supposedly classified any information related to this incident, which of course just turned cryptid and UFO enthusiast cranks even more. What makes a possible extraterrestrial or mythical creature sighting more plausible than a government cover-up? And at number 8, we have a story posted to Reddit by user Digestive's Rule. This was in response to a thread asking divers what the creepiest thing they'd experienced while diving was. Digestive's Rule wrote, "I'm a commercial diver and was once on a job cleaning a portable water reservoir. I'd been in other reservoirs before, but this one was by far the biggest, at 40 by 80 meters. To get in, you had to open a hatch in the ground. The whole reservoir was underground, and climb down a ladder. The hatch was in a corner, so when you were in the far corner of the reservoir, it was completely pitch black, and you just had to hope your light didn't go out. I was about halfway through a 3-hour dive when the batteries in my torch started going flat. I watched the beam get narrower and dimmer until it cut out completely. It's not a huge problem if you lose light, as you can just follow your umbilical back to the hatch. Just as I started walking back, some obnoxiously loud banging started somewhere in the reservoir. I was the only diver in there, so it both confused and scared the out of me. Needless to say, I ran back to the hatch as fast as I could. I ended up getting my torch changed out and doing another hour in the water, but I didn't hear the noise again. I still have no idea what it was, but the combination of my torch going out and loud banging coming from somewhere gave me a hell of a fright. Now let us turn our attention to the elusive giant squid. So for the longest time, these colossal creatures were thought of in the same way the Loch Ness Monster is, simply rumored to exist, but rarely seen and often dismissed as seafaring folklore. The big breakthrough in the giant squid saga came in 2004, when researchers and a Japanese film crew managed to capture the first images of a living giant squid in its natural habitat. I cannot imagine the excitement. They basically stumbled on a real-life sea monster. The series of images were a game changer, proving that these creatures weren't just the stuff of sailors' tall tales. Then in 2012, another significant moment occurred when scientists managed to capture giant squid footage for the first time in its natural habitat. This time, submersibles were used to spot the creatures. So what makes giant squids so fascinating other than how elusive they are? Well, they're colossal. Some individuals can reach lengths of up to 43 feet with eyes the size of basketballs. Speaking of giant stuff, let's talk a bit about giant isopods. The giant isopod is a crustacean that inhabits the Mariana Trench and other deep sea environments. They kind of look like an oversized pill bug. These things can reach lengths of over 16 inches. Thank God these things were designated for deep sea environments. I've always thought potato bugs are actually kind of cute, but they would not be cute if they were 16 inches long. Don't have the time for that kind of thing scuttling around my apartment. Giant isopods are scavengers feeding on the remains of dead animals that sink to the trench floor. Their slow metabolism allows them to survive on limited food resources in the deep sea environment.
At number 10, we have an octopus nursery. 8-legged alien looking things with suction cups all over their arms and beaks for mouths. Octopus are creepy looking things, and to top it all off, they can camouflage like a Navy SEAL, and they are super smart. If these are the kind of things that make your skin crawl, then just running into one of these guys would probably freak you out. Well, on the underwater expedition at the Davidson Seamount, there was a rather shocking discovery. They had a remote probe that was on the ocean floor around 10,000 feet, and they came across which seemed to be an octopus that was next to not just one, not just two, but a group of 1,000 octopuses in a nursery. They were all there laying their eggs and using the heat from the volcanic vent to keep them warm. I would hate to be the guy who accidentally steps into that crack and then gets devoured by thousands of sticky arms. But if you're at 10,000 feet underwater, you probably are already screwed. At number 9, we have the Siberian lake monster. Of course, if we're doing a list of scary things that live underwater, we have to throw a giant mysterious sea monster on here. What separates the Siberian lake monster from other more popular guys that we have seen like Loch Ness and that kind of stuff is that underwater scans have actually picked this guy up. This thing is deep in Lake Labincure, and some radar has shown that it looks like a 33-foot long creature is living there. Now this is probably just a skeleton, but if this thing is dead, it means that there was once a giant man-eating monster in this lake. I thought we were supposed to be safe in freshwater. They've nicknamed this thing the Devil, so you know he's a good time and loves company. So next time you go up to the cottage and you're swimming in the water and you feel safe, remember there might be a giant monster lurking underneath the water ready to turn you into a side dish. At number 8, we have the blue hole. Now there are several blue holes in the world. There's one in Belize, there's one in the Red Sea, there's a giant one in my heart that was left there from when Reboot ended on a cliffhanger. How are you going to end a show that so many people fell in love with on a cliffhanger? I will never trust again. Well, this one is between Cape Verde and the Caribbean islands. Scientists are really confused about this thing. It's a crack in the bottom of the ocean floor and is several thousand miles long. What's strange about this is there's no explanation of how this happened. It might have been tectonic plates moving around, but when this happened, the Earth will probably start to repair itself and there's been no sign of this. My theory is this is where Godzilla goes to sleep at night. I mean, it seems like the most logical answer. It's either that or the gateway to hell. Like, come on guys, I'm doing real science work here. At number 7, we have the Yonaguni Complex. This was discovered by scuba divers in the 1980s. I think that's the scariest part about this one. Could you imagine going scuba diving back in the 80s? The technology back then must have been a tube going up to some guy who would blast fresh air down to you using a bicycle pump. I don't even think they had decompression sickness figured out back then. The chances of you coming up the bends was probably super high. Well, if it wasn't for a few divers in Japan who were willing to sacrifice it all to look at some cool stuff, we wouldn't know anything about the Yonaguni Complex. It's still a mystery as to what this thing is. It looks like some temples that might have existed thousands of years ago, but when the ice age decided to melt, it would have covered this entire area. This could be why an entire civilization got plunged underwater. Or the temple could have been on a cliff, and then when a massive earthquake hit, it knocked the temple into the water. But like everything in life, there are some haters who say this whole thing is just a natural rock formation. Some people just want to ruin everything. At number 6, we have Anacorra Cista Twista. One of the reasons why the underwater world is such a mystery is because we find things like this in there. Sure, there are beautiful things down there like bright fish and chubby marine mammals, but there's also the unknown, unidentified organisms, like Anacorra twista, which should be the name of an 80s hair metal band. But what is this thing? Well, it's a protist. And what is a protist, you may ask? Well, it's an organism that doesn't belong to any animal group, fungus, or plant group. What does that mean? I really have no idea, you guys. I think it means it could be an alien. Some alien came down to Earth for a swim and then scraped its knee on some coral, and now we have alien creatures running around the ocean, probably waiting for you to pee so it can swim up your pee hole and then work its way into your brain. It's really the only logical answer.
Ocean mysteries don't just pertain to the creatures that live in it. Sometimes researchers or divers will hear something coming from the depths of the ocean that is both terrifying and seemingly mysterious. From some of the classics like the Bloop and Julia, to the sounds of underwater volcanoes and earthquakes, all the way to some super strange sounds coming from actual marine creatures. What is up, Top 10 fam? Welcome back. I am your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and today we are diving in as we cover the top 10 terrifying signals heard by submarines. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have this haunting call. Whales truly are some of the coolest animals on Earth, and humpback whales are no exception. The males of the species are known for their songs, which last from 10 to 20 minutes and are actually pretty complex. They will repeat these songs for hours at a time, and it honestly isn't exactly known why they sing these songs at all. All the males in the group will produce the same song, and it will change seasonally. The females are also able to produce noise, but for some reason it is only the males who seem to produce these long songs. It is unclear how the whales even produce these sounds, however, because they don't actually have vocal cords. This is all super cool and interesting, but the whole reason you're here is for the sound, so let's take a listen to a more haunting track released by the humpback whale. Okay, so please tell me I'm not alone in thinking that that was the most beautifully haunting sound I've ever heard come from the sea. But also imagine being alone in the ocean, not knowing what that was, and then hearing it. Probably pretty terrifying, right? At least we're all safe here in YouTube land. In our number 9 spot today, we have this marine chorus. Okay, so out of context, if I played you this sound, what would you think it is? Definitely not something underwater, right? Well, as it turns out, this sound was indeed captured under the water, and these are the sounds of fish calls. While I always expected the chorus of marine animals to sound a little more similar to the stylings of Sebastian the crab, apparently that isn't even close. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know that most fish had calls, but it turns out that our human ears just can't perceive all of the hoots, moans, barks, and chirps that take place in the vast seas. This recording actually helped scientists realize that there are fish who sing together in a chorus every day at dusk and dawn. There have now been around 800 species of fish that have been identified and confirmed to make some form of noise, and apparently some fish even engage in shouting matches in noisier parts of the ocean, which is kind of hilarious to imagine. I guess on the list of creepy noises, this one is less creepy and more just informative. In our number 8 spot today, we have the whistle. This is a sound that was first recorded in 1997 by the NOAA and was the source of many mysteries for years while people speculated about what may have caused the sound. While it still isn't exactly clear, it is now believed that the sound may have come from an underwater volcano eruption. If you didn't know, underwater or submarine volcanoes are located in all oceans on our Earth, and they're extremely interesting. There are certain kinds of marine animals that only exist near these extreme environments. Many submarine volcanoes are located near the areas of tectonic plate formations, which are also known as mid-ocean ridges. There's a YouTube user called Sunken, and they left a comment on a video of this whistle sound that pretty much sums it up exactly. First, we'll listen to the sound played at 10 times the original speed. The comment read, quote, "It could be the sound of something moving through tunnels. 1. Volcanic eruptions and gases. 2. Something big and hungry. You choose." I think they might really be onto something there. In our number 7 spot today, we have bloop. Why are all of the weirdest ocean sounds first recorded in 1997? Bloop is another one that came from that year, and it was a loud and unusual sound that was placed as occurring several times off the southern coast of South America, and it was so loud that it could be heard over 5,000 kilometers away. At first, researchers were confused because, while the sound was actually similar to known sounds of living creatures, it was just way too loud that not not even the blue whale, the largest living creature, could have produced it. So what is it then? Well, as it turns out, it is in fact not the Kraken, and instead it is actually consistent with ice quakes that are generated by large icebergs as they crack and fracture. It seems like this sound, going with that explanation, doesn't really make sense, but hey, I'm no scientist. But here's the sound for you to judge for yourself. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Western Pacific biotwang. In 2014, researchers and scientists heard weird sounds coming from the Mariana Trench, which, for the record, seems like the worst place for there to be strange noises coming from. For years, experts couldn't pin down this sound, and it was dubbed the Western Pacific biotwang, and while there is now a theory that was proposed by researchers from Oregon State University, they have also said that they might be entirely wrong. First, for reference, here's a little clip of the sound I'm talking about. Okay, so if you're like me, my mind immediately went to something alien related or some sort of creature that perhaps we haven't yet discovered. I mean, this is the Mariana Trench we're talking about. The theory put forward by the Oregon State researchers was that perhaps this may be a new type of baleen whale call. Okay, that's probably the best of all of the options, but I really don't like when someone tells me the answer to a scientific mystery only to tell me that that might not actually be the answer at all. While the low part of the sound would make sense to attribute to the baleen whale, it's the end high-pitched twangy part that would be incredibly unique. The wide range of frequencies in the sound are what continues to baffle those who are trying to find the source of this mysterious sound. In our number 5 spot today, we have Julia. Julia is a sound that was recorded in 1999 by the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, which I've already talked about today. It sounds like it could be straight out of a horror movie, so considering it was a sound that came from our ocean and at first no one could tell where it had come from, it really was quite frightening. The sound has now likely been demystified, as researchers are pretty positive they know the origin of it. It is now believed that this sound was caused by an iceberg running aground off Antarctica. The sound, however, was insanely loud. It was so loud that it could be heard over the entire equatorial Pacific Ocean autonomous hydrophone array. Researchers were later able to narrow down what they believe may have been the point where the sound originated, although they've never actually been able to pinpoint it exactly. Most of the time when people hear the Julia sound, they hear it sped up at 16 times the original speed, but today we are going to listen to a clip of the sound at regular speed because I think it is much more eerie this way. In our number 4 spot today, we have knock. Okay, this is one that I'll admit was not captured by a submarine, but it was still underwater and it truly is terrifying. A few years ago, a beluga whale named Knock, who was unfortunately in captivity, was recorded as he swam below the water. Beluga whales have been called the canaries of the sea, and for good reason, but Knock really wanted to up the ante and instead blessed us all with this sound. Knock had this uncanny ability to mimic the rhythm and tone of human voices, and it truly is kind of frightening. It of course is also a little sad, as part of this was probably because he spent most of his life being forced to listen to humans speak because he was being held in captivity. Before this recording of Knock, the voices of belugas and their sometimes human-like sounds have been talked about, but Knock was the first time it was recorded, and honestly, I kind of wish it hadn't been. In our number 3 spot today, we have the bioduck. Since the 1960s, this sound has absolutely stumped researchers who heard it. This sound was basically what the name attributed to it would suggest. It sounded like some sort of mechanical duck. For decades, researchers would hear this sound and it would often be heard and recorded again in the spring and winters. After all of these years though, it seems as though the answers to this mysterious sound are finally coming to light. In 2013, researchers attached sensors that collect acoustic data to 2 whales. One of those tags recorded for 18 hours and the other for 8, and the whales they were attached to were traveling with other whales in groups of 5 to 40, and they were all eating basically the entire time. Throughout this time with the tags on the whales, reports, there were a total of 32 calls heard, and this data is what led researchers to finally understand where the bioduct sound was coming from. As it turns out, this mysterious sound was actually the call of the minke whale. Researchers still aren't exactly clear as to what the call means to the whales, but it was a fantastic discovery that finally closed an almost 50-year-old scientific mystery. In our number 2 spot today we have upsweep. We all know how little we know about the ocean, and that also includes what kind of creatures lie in it. So while this mysterious sound out of context probably wouldn't be that freaky, when put into this situation it becomes quite a bit more eerie. This sound is referred to as upsweep, and it was caught when the Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory started its sound surveillance system in August of 1991. The sound is apparently more seasonal, with its peaks in spring and fall, but it is unclear if the changing of seasons is responsible for this sound, or if it's coming from something that lurks in the ocean and remains undiscovered. Just for reference, here's a clip of that sound played at 20 times the original speed. It is possible that this sound could be coming from underwater volcanic activity, but it is also possible that it's not, so who really knows? In our number 1 spot today we have an earthquake. Okay, so to add another creepy Mariana Trench sound to this list, we have one that was taken from the bottom of the Challenger Deep. In fact, it was the first ever sound recording to be taken from the bottom of the Challenger Deep, so it's a pretty cool scientific advancement as well as a terrifying sound. Despite the crushing pressures and the fact that there's no sunlight, the Challenger Deep is actually pretty noisy, and that is because of the fact that sound travels a really long way underwater, which ends up kind of turning the Challenger Deep into a sort of echo chamber of oceanic sounds. So while the recording was able to pick up things like the sound of a boat almost 11 kilometers overhead and the sounds of whale calls, they were also able to pick up the sound of a magnitude 5 earthquake rumbling near Guam on July 16th, 2015. Not gonna lie, while being one of the scariest things I've ever heard, this is also one of the coolest things I've ever heard in my life too. Science really is just so cool sometimes.
At number 5 we have the Bimini Road. How were the pyramids made? Was it aliens coming down to share their technology and secrets with us, or was it just thousands upon thousands of slaves who sacrificed their lives and their spines to build them? Well, we don't know and we may never know, but the Bimini Road is another one of these mysteries. It's off the coast of the Bahamas, and it looks like it could have been a pathway that was placed perfectly with giant slabs of rock. Similar to the way the pyramids were made, it seems that these large slabs of rock were too large to be moved by man, and also like the pyramids, these giant slabs were also perfectly placed so well. So where does everyone's mind go when something like this happens? Well, magic or aliens. The logical answer is that this is a natural phenomenon of the water moving and hitting the rocks to make these formations, but people think that this was made using advanced technology from aliens and could have been the road to Atlantis. Honestly, I like the Atlantis theory much better. It's more fun. At number 4 we have colossal squid. Yeah, this thing is a big no thanks for me. So everyone always talks about how there might be sea monsters out there, but this thing actually exists. There's never been one caught alive, but several have washed onto shores dead, and they are massive. The largest one ever discovered was 45 feet long, and it was dead. So you know there was an even bigger one out there that killed this guy. They don't even have suckers on their tentacles, they have hooks. Let me say that again. This squid has 10 giant arms covered in hooks. This thing is straight out of a horror movie. Scientists aren't even sure what something this big eats. They think it probably feeds on whales or your deepest darkest fears. I wouldn't be surprised if the colossal squid works part-time as a gatekeeper for hell. It makes me think that the old Greek stories about the Kraken might have been real. At number 3 we have underwater circles. Giant formations of circles that are formed underwater and nobody knows how they got there. These mysteries were discovered off the coast of North Carolina, Florida, and Belize. Now what are they? Like many things on this list, myself and the entire scientific community have no idea. But here are some theories. Maybe they were formed naturally by either two things, water currents or some sort of animal mating ritual. Another idea is that these things were made by ancient civilizations before the Ice Age. All these things would have been above ground and might have been art left over by some old-timey tribes. And the third theory is that they look kind of like a bullseye, so it might be some sort of nuclear missile target, and if you hit it hard enough, the explosion will cause some sort of major major natural disaster like an earthquake or tsunami, or if we're lucky, both. At number 2 we have Megalodon. If you have a fear of sharks, you're gonna love this one. Megalodon was a prehistoric shark that was even bigger than the giant hook tentacle beast that was earlier on this list. If you've already forgotten about the colossal squid, it clocked in at around 45 feet long, where Megalodon was closer to 60 feet long. It was a 60-foot shark that could probably rip a blue whale in half in one bite. Well, maybe not that, but it was still a gargantuan creature with teeth the size of Brock Lesnar's fists. This thing wouldn't even chew you, it would just swallow you whole and then fart your skeleton out into the dark cold ocean. At number 1 on our list, we have Giant Eyeball. A mysterious giant eyeball washed onto the shore of a Florida beach back in October of 2012. I don't know any other kind of giant eyeball other than a mysterious one. There's no super common regular giant eyeball just lying around. But this is also Florida. This is the state where people smoke crack at weddings and kiss alligators on the lips, so maybe it's a little more common over there. Well, this giant eyeball was found by Gino Cavacci, and he didn't know what the hell to make of it, so he took it home and then stuck it in his freezer. Then he called the cops, and the cops came in and told him, "We don't do giant eyeballs on the beach. You have to call the wildlife people." And then he called the wildlife people, and they were like, "What the hell is that?" And he was like, "I don't know. I brought it to you guys to try and figure out what it is." And then some people were like, "Maybe it's a sea monster," and other people were like, "No, it's probably from a marlin." And I think in the end, no one really knew what the hell it was. But just so you know, there's giant eyeballs out there just laying around the beach sometime.
Next up on the list, we have underwater pyramids in Cuba. There is a lot of controversy surrounding the so-called underwater pyramids off the coast of Cuba, discovered by oceanographer Pauline Zalitsky and her husband Paul Weinswig in 2000. These structures lie at a depth of around 2,000 feet. So when images of this underwater site were first released, people looked at them and were like, that looks like some kind of underwater pyramid or something. Are these structures that maybe are part of some ancient lost civilization? The mysterious alignment of the structures has also led some to propose extraterrestrial involvement. The idea that maybe these pyramids could be part of an ancient alien civilization's underwater base. Just like with many cases of this kind, some also claim that governments and mainstream archaeologists are suppressing information about the site to maintain the status quo. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have, of course, these skeptics. They basically just said, these are natural formations, and what folks are seeing is just a case of pareidolia. While many remain skeptical about the existence of an advanced ancient civilization beneath the waves, looking at these images, you really can't deny how uncanny some of these formations look. And number 4, we have Bimini Road. Bimini Road, discovered off the coast of North Bimini Island in the Bahamas in 1968, has again a lot of controversy surrounding it. It consists of a series of rectangular limestone blocks arranged in a linear pattern, looking almost like a road. The discovery was first made by pilots flying over the area, and then underwater expeditions confirmed the existence of the submerged structure. Now, according to mainstream scientists, Bimini Road consists of beach rock, the result of sand and shell fragments cementing over time. So many of them believe it isn't man-made, but there are more interesting theories. Some propose an Atlantis connection, that maybe the structure is a remnant of the mythical lost city. There's just too many straight lines and right angles in the formation for it to be some natural occurrence, and there are theories not linked with Atlantis, the possibility of some other advanced prehistoric civilization predating the known cultures. And because the internet exists and there are people with all kinds of crazy ideas all over the globe, there are even more outlandish theories about this formation, some claiming technological anomalies associated with the stones, like unusual magnetic fields and unexplained energy readings. Alright, back to some mysterious creature stuff though. The yellow belly sea monster. On September 11th of 1876, Captain John K. Webster and James Anderson aboard the Nestor saw something they'd truly never forget. It was an unidentified sea creature while off the coast of Malaysia. They described the thing as about 60 to 100 feet in length. It looked a bit like a large tadpole with a flat necklace head. It didn't seem to have any fins or flippers either, and its yellow skin had a prominent black stripe running along its spine. About 9 years later, on October 4th of 1885, a similar creature was observed in South Africa. Witnesses reported a 90-foot creature with yellow skin, black stripes, but this creature had fins on either side. In 1965, Bernard Heuvelmans, a Belgian-French scientist, explorer, researcher, also often referred to as the father of cryptozoology, looked at these two sightings and then categorized the creature as the yellow belly. He believed it could be an unknown shark species or possibly an amphibian, creating a classification for tadpole-like sea monsters on a bigger scale. Of course. The most famous yellow belly sighting, though, occurred on December 12th of 1964 near Hook Island, Queensland. Robert Lasarick and his family, along with a friend, spotted an 80-foot creature in the shallow water. At first they thought it was dead because of a visible wound, but it opened its mouth and began swimming towards their boat. The creature had smooth, dark skin with brown stripes, no visible fins or teeth, and slit-shaped pupils. Then the family just got out of there. At number 2, we have the underwater Stonehenge. Off the shores of Lake Michigan lies an intriguing underwater discovery known as the underwater Stonehenge. Researchers came across the site while using sonar technology to explore the lake's floor. The underwater formation features a cluster of stones arranged in a circular or horseshoe-type pattern, looking a lot like the renowned Stonehenge in England. In terms of the mainstream scientific world, experts propose that the stones may be natural geological formations. That always seems to be their go-to. People will be like, ah, look at this, and then they're like, it's natural, it's natural. While others think that this site might hold evidence of an ancient civilization predating recorded history. The stones seem to be placed in this very precise alignment, and of course, Atlantis always comes into the conversation. Finally though, we have another story posted to Reddit, this one by user Tamu. Actually, we have 2 short stories here. They go as follows. This isn't my story, but my dad's. So when he was in grad school, he did some field studies classes, some of which involved diving in Monterey Bay. One day he was diving, counting something off the Santa Cruz Pier, and he finds a shopping cart with bricks and cinder blocks and a chain attached to the handle. He naturally followed the chain and found a bare foot wrapped in the chain. He assumes something probably ate the rest of the body, and apparently his friends had seen similar things too. Also not mine, but my dad's friend. He says he was on a shelf counting mussels when he felt something tap his tank. He looked around, didn't see anything. He figured it was a seal, because they like to play. When he was nudged again, he saw it was a great white. He says he thought to himself, if it gets me, it gets me. I can't outswim it. Now, I don't know if he was actually that chill. I sure wouldn't be, but that's how he tells it. So that second story really gets me. Like, the foot is super creepy, but turning around to see a great white right next to you, and you're in its habitat, and you just have that acceptance of like, there's nothing I can do in this situation. That is fear on like a true primal level. Yeah, spooky.
Number 5, $150 million of lost silver. At the bottom of the Atlantic for more than a century, a 150-year-old steamship had been found in 2003. The ship is the Republic, which sailed from New York in 1865, just after the Civil War, carrying 59 passengers and crew and mixed cargo meant to help New Orleans recover from the war. About 100 miles off Georgia, battling a hurricane, it sank in waters a third of a mile deep. Its cargo of lost coins, experts say, may now be up to worth $150 million. That would make it one of history's richest treasure wrecks. It's a dream come true, said Dr. Donald H. Kagan, an expert on 19th century coins who is advising the company that discovered the wreck. There are piles of coins. The company Odyssey Marine Exploration of Tampa, Florida, who announced the find, said it hoped to retrieve all the coins. The company has retrieved more than 1,600 gold and silver coins, and none are dated later than 1865, tending to confirm the wreck's identity, said George Stem, the company's director of operations. For some reason, even the silver coins are in great condition. Part of it is surely the physical environment down there, he said. The icy deep explorers are still finding can often preserve objects, even precious metals like silver, that normally corrode easily. It's like finding a real treasure, and I would definitely like to receive some of those special coins. Number 4, giant squid. The Kraken is a legendary sea monster of enormous size that is said to appear off the coast of Norway. Now, this is a mythical creature, but there is some truth to it. A giant squid was found on shore in Denmark in 1853. The giant squid is as elusive as the legend it inspired. It lives so deep underwater that we have limited information about it. However, we know it has the largest eyes of all living creatures, grows up to 18 meters, and is frequently hunted by sperm whales for food. The weaker giant squid generally flees when confronted by a whale. However, it sometimes fights back when cornered, and it's not unusual to find sperm whales with scars left from their battles with giant squids. It wasn't until the turn of the century in 2001 that humans saw the giant squid for the first time, and only a few years after that when it was finally photographed, making it one of the most elusive on the planet. The giant squid has long been known to exist, but capturing it on film has taken scientists extensive time and voyages to the deepest parts of the ocean where life is difficult to sustain. Number 3. Elongated skulls. Saquayum is a cenote located in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. It is a place that locals feared, and in 2012 a team of divers discovered the reason behind its fearsome reputation. An underwater survey discovered 2 chambers of the cenote littered with human bones, including deformed skulls. Archaeologists spent 2 weeks exploring the 2 chambers. The skulls belong to different sexes and ages, so they aren't thought to be sacrifices, which begs the question, why are they buried deep underwater? Archaeologist Bradley Russell, who made the discovery, believes the dead may have been buried as some form of ritual, or that they could be the victims of a plague that swept through the area. You wouldn't want them near the rest of the population, and you wouldn't want to drink the water either, Russell explained. Regardless, that's creepy. And why are the skulls elongated? Are they another species of human? I have so many questions. Number 2. Baltic Sea anomaly. In 2011, a sonar image was taken by Peter Lindberg, Dennis Erberg, and their Swedish Ocean X diving team while searching for treasures on the ocean floor in the Baltic Sea. What the picture showed was a seemingly non-natural 200-foot circular object with passageways and stairs. The discovery looked like something out of a Star Wars film, and many people believed it was a spaceship that sank to the bottom of the ocean. Samples taken from the area in 2012 were given to Swedish scientists who said that there was nothing extraterrestrial about the area, but I'm not too sure about that. What Ocean X and the crew had found was weird, and many still think there is a UFO lying at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, and there's another expedition to the area planned soon. And coming in at number 1 is giant underwater pyramids. Off the coast of Portugal in the Atlantic Ocean is an anomaly that experts have been unable to fully understand or explain. Picked up by oceanic GPS technology, measurements of a structure were found, leading researchers to believe that 2 giant pyramids of ancient times sit underwater thousands of feet below the surface. The GPS data received back has the structures with a base of 8,000 square feet and about 150 feet tall, making these pyramids pretty giant in size. But there's very little explanation into their existence, leaving it entirely up to speculation. Why would they be there? Is it another hidden city? Who knows? The pyramid has been underwater for about 20,000 years. Considering this is around the time of the last ice age where glaciation was melting from its peak 2,000 years prior, whatever civilization, human or not, that was around before the ice age could be responsible for building the pyramid. While the Portuguese Navy still hasn't determined the origins, many might question why this hasn't been first reported sooner than late 2012. To further support the idea that this pyramid could have been built by different civilizations, archaeologists from the Portuguese Association of Archaeological Research have recently discovered evidence on Pico Island that suggests their belief that humans existed in the Azores region before the arrival of the Portuguese thousands of years ago. Spooky.
Number 5, the Great Blue Hole. The Great Blue Hole is a renowned underwater sinkhole situated off the coast of Belize in the Caribbean Sea. It has a circular shape with a diameter of approximately 1,000 feet or 300 meters and a depth of around 410 feet or 125 meters. Formed during past ice ages when lower sea levels caused the collapse of a cave system. It's a pretty amazing sight too, because it has this very distinct deep blue color that really contrasts with the surrounding shallow waters. It's kind of freaky, but as freaky as it is, it attracts a lot of tourists and professional divers who want to go down there to check it out. Divers exploring the hole have encountered unique stalactites, limestone formations, formations, and a number of marine species, mainly sharks. Yeah, I've seen footage. It does look beautiful, but there are a lot of sharks of various species, and that's kind of scary. Okay, time for a story. This one has to do with the Titanic. It's a personal story, actually, once again. Yeah, before I get to this, though, I'll talk a bit about the wreckage, because that's the theme of the video. I probably don't need to give any of you a history lesson on the Titanic. I'm sure most of you know more about it than I do. I haven't even seen the movie, I'll admit. But the haunting wreckage was discovered by a deep sea explorer named Robert Ballard in 1985. Fascination with the disaster began around then, and of course peaked with James Cameron's movie in 1997. All right, so interesting story here. I actually had relatives who were set to board the Titanic, but my great-grandfather, who was just a little kid at the time, at least I think it's my great-grandfather. I gotta brush up on my family history, but he had stayed out a couple nights before to watch a fire that was happening in the village they lived in. It had been raining, it was cold, and he ended up catching pneumonia, so they didn't end up leaving on the Titanic. They did leave on a boat later on, and apparently they threw flowers down over the wreckage site. Anyway, if they did board, they would not have survived. They would have been on the lower decks with Leonardo DiCaprio playing the fiddle, whatever they did down there. Again, I have not seen the movie. But yeah, thank God, right? All of you wouldn't have little old me in your lives if things had gone a different way. How would the world cope without me in it? I don't know. At number 3, we have giant squids. These mythical creatures turned out not to be so mythical after all, and in 2004, the first actual sighting of these elusive creatures were spotted in Japan. Giant squids live in all parts of the ocean at varying depths, and the largest giant squid on record measured in at 59 feet, weighing nearly a ton with eyes the size of beach balls. 59 feet. That's about the height of the life-size Gundam that was built in Japan. Like, take a look at this image. Yeah, that tall. Look at how it towers over the people. Now replace the Gundam with a freaking squid. That is nightmarish. That's a real-life Kraken. The Kraken is not fictional. And I'm willing to bet that in ancient times there were even more of these giant beasts swimming around out there. At number 2, we have the Bermuda Triangle. How can we do a scary Atlantic Ocean video without bringing up the Bermuda Triangle, right? The amount of spookiness and mystery surrounding this area has made it notorious for years, with reports of mysterious disappearances of ships and aircrafts beginning back in 1950. The boundaries that make up the Bermuda Triangle are typically said to be Miami, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda, forming a triangle shape in the North Atlantic Ocean. Stories of vessels and vanishing without a trace and instruments malfunctioning within this area have stirred up a whole whack load of conspiracy theories over the years. Is there ancient technology down there messing with our equipment? Is the area cursed somehow? Now, many experts say it's got to do with just weather, strong currents. The thing is, even with all their explanations, there's still this big question mark hanging over the place. And coming in at number 1 is the Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek device retrieved from a shipwreck in 1901 near the island of Antikythera. It's a complex mechanical calculator dating back to around 100 BCE. The mechanism has gears and dials, so it was probably used to track astronomical positions or predict celestial events like eclipses and planetary motions, and researchers believe it might have been used as a tool for teaching astronomy, perhaps. It's made of bronze and consists of around 30 gears with inscriptions describing the functions of the various parts. It's often referred to as the first analog computer ever discovered. It was pretty incredible because it shows a level of technological knowledge that we just did not know existed at the time, and there's still a lot of mystery surrounding it. The purpose of the device is still mostly unknown till this day. We could just kind of speculate what it was used for. Of course, there have been plenty of fun conspiracy theories surrounding this too. Was this alien technology shared with our ancestors, or are those all those years ago? Is there more of this technology that's simply been lost to time? Again, there's a lot of unexplored ocean out there. Who knows what we'll find in the years to come.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the giant sea monster. Now, if you watched my video on Google Earth, then you already have seen me talk about this. If you haven't, then, well, Google Earth basically caught a giant sea beast on their satellite camera. It was spotted off the coast of Antarctica's Deception Island. And no one, even scientists, don't know what it is. It could just be a whale, but it's still unconfirmed. Theories range from it being an underwater UFO, to a kraken, or another sea beast that we have yet to discover. To be honest, to me, it looks like a massive squid, but what do you think it is? Let me know in the comments below. In our 4th spot, we have the UFO video. More UFOs. Now, this was a leaked video showing what appears to be a UFO diving into the ocean. The video was filmed in 2019 off the coast of San Diego. Eventually, people were demanding answers, so the Pentagon eventually came forward saying that the video was authentic and that they don't know what the object is in the video. In the video, the object flies across the screen before stopping and slowly lowering itself into the water. Apparently, this was recorded by official Navy personnel. What do you think that could be? The Pentagon has no explanation for it yet. In our 3rd spot today, we have the plastic. The amount of plastic currently in our oceans is disgusting. Currently, 5.25 trillion macro and micro pieces of plastic are in our ocean. There's 46,000 pieces in every square mile of the ocean. Every day, around 8 million pieces of plastic make their way into our oceans. And guess what? Fish are eating them, and then we're eating these fish. So slowly, these microplastics are ending up in our bodies. But not just from fish. From bottled water, beer, honey, sea salt, and tea bags have all been exposed as microplastic carriers. We're killing marine life and ourselves, slowly but surely, and the governments are hardly addressing this issue. In our 2nd spot, we have the nuclear waste. Bet you didn't know this, but our oceans are radioactive. Since 1952, low levels of radioactive waste have been discharged into the Irish Sea, the English Channel, and the Arctic Ocean. This radiation can enter the food chain through plankton, and then the fish eat the plankton, and then we eat the fish. In fact, radioactive cesium and plutonium have already been found in seals and porpoises. And it's getting worse. As the nuclear energy industry grows, more and more radioactive waste will be disposed of and find its way into our ground and water supply. Again, another scary thing the government doesn't address. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the secret underwater bases. Allegedly, the government has a number of secret underwater bases. They're just hidden from the public, so we don't know about them. We do know of one base though, and that's the naval testing facility in Lake Bayview, Idaho. The lake that it's located in is 1,200 feet deep, and it is pretty remote, so it's deep and secluded enough to run these tests. If they have one there, who's to say they don't have more and in the ocean? Only time will tell. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below, are you more afraid of space or the ocean? I don't know, both are pretty terrifying, but let me know. And speaking of comments, let's move on to our comment shout out portion. I'll be shouting out comments from the video Top 10 Terrifying Things Google Earth Doesn't Want You to See, Part 2. Zach Hampton commented, I'm convinced that the Red Lake is Kool-Aid. Love the content, Lindsay. Wouldn't that be cool if like it is Kool-Aid, you could just go there and whenever you're thirsty, just yum. And then the Kool-Aid man comes out of there? Oh yeah. Brittany Barger commented, Lindsay, I love your hair. Would you please do some Alaska videos in the future? Love this channel. We actually have done videos on Alaska, so just search it on our channel and you'll see it pop up. Bam, there you go. Maybe we'll do more. Joelle Jimenez commented, hey Lindsay, how are you? Long time no see. Great video as always. Well, I'm always on this channel, so I'm always here. But hi, yes, I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you doing? Let me know. Alright guys, that's all the comments I'm shouting out for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in my next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see ya. Bye!
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. Viewer discretion advised. It's about disturbing real-life demon photos that you won't believe are real, but have been confirmed by the Pope himself. Click the video now to find out more. See you guys in the next video.